Hello everyone, this is Watchtower X, and for today's video, I'm going to be listing off 5 reasons why you should join or leave Jehovah's Witnesses organization. And before you get triggered off of the title, I was first thinking of just making this video about 5 reasons why you should leave the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, but I thought to myself, why not add the other side of the argument? Why not add a little bit of perspective? So I came up with 5 reasons why you should join as well. And for both lists, I didn't make them in any particular order from like greatest to least or anything. They're just 5 points. So I'll just go off of the points that I've made. So they're not going to escalate into something incredibly controversial or anything. They're just going to be 5 points. So let's start with 5 reasons why you should join this organization. Although I would not tell anyone to join this organization, just throwing that out there. And so we are going to start with the first one, which is love bombing. So obviously the reality of love bombing isn't actually healthy because it's not real. But essentially love bombing is just overflowing this loving, warm feeling to an individual who may or may not be expecting it. There's a lot of love bombing that goes on in the Jehovah's Witness organization. In fact, the governing body encourages it. Many times you'll see in articles about wanting to show outsiders or people in the world or Bible study how wonderful the organization is. And many times elders and circuit overseers would encourage members of the congregation to engage with those who are new in the congregation or those who are visiting, so that they'll see how wonderful the Christian organization is. So a lot of people like that feeling that you'll receive this kind of love, and you'll also be receiving it in any kind of situation that you're in. If you're going through tough times, there's a lot of sisters that'll make food for you, and they'll pop by your house or your place and drop off the food for you. It's happened to me and my family as well. A lot of people will offer a helping hand at no expense as well. So you really feel like you belong when those type of things happen. So that can be very appealing to people. Moving on to number 2, and this is the community. So the community is there no matter where you are. You can travel to wherever you want in this world, or practically wherever you want, and you'll find a community of Jehovah's Witnesses. I've done a bit of traveling myself, so I can definitely attest to the fact that no matter where you go, you're going to be treated with kindness. It doesn't matter what race you are. There's no discrimination. Everyone's the same because they receive the same instructions. So it's a lot easier to make friends when you're in this community that wants to be very inclusive. So that's also another aspect that's appealing. Moving on to number 3, I couldn't think of a appropriate title, so I just call it sheep. It's the fact that you don't have to think throughout your life as a Jehovah's Witness. You don't have to think about all the philosophical concepts or any kind of guidance, because all these answers are already provided for you. All you have to do is read the publications and you'll be able to reach the right conclusion, because they have this conclusion just thrown at you through this narrow path. So you can't come to any other conclusion aside from the ones that Watchtower wants you to come with. So you don't have to think about these things. And for a lot of people, they don't like thinking about these type of things. For me, that's definitely not true. I think all the time. But, you know, the saying, sheeple, people just like to be led and they don't want to take that leadership position, even when it comes to their own life. So having someone guide you is a lot easier than guiding yourself, because there is no guidance rule in life. Life is just life. Things happen and you have to take charge and figure out how to go about your life. But if someone's already given you a handout as to how you should be leading your life, it's much more simple to do that. So number 3 is sheep. You have someone guiding you throughout your own life as to how you should go about your life. Let's move on to number 4, which is networking. So for any Jehovah's Witness, this is very obvious, but networking is a big thing. So within the congregation, within multiple congregations, family, friends, someone owns a company, someone knows a guy who knows a guy, someone has a truck to lend in case you need a big vehicle. There's always some kind of connection you can get to. By talking to one person, they'll talk to multiple people. So it's very easy to get what you need when you're in this organization, because everyone wants to present themselves as someone who's helpful. And so they'll tell all their connections about an issue you may have. So it makes getting what you need a lot easier in that respects when everyone is when you're in a congregation that houses over 150 people. It's a lot easier to branch out and reach the kind of connection you need. Moving on to the last reason why you should join is pacification. So this whole idea that Jehovah's Witnesses strive to be pacifists, seeking peace and not looking to cause drama. Of course, there is drama within this organization because we're all humans and humans tend to have conflicts. These type of things happen, and they're evident in the fact that Watchtower does make publications about making peace amongst each other. So there is that, but the thing is, Jehovah's Witnesses strive to not come into any kinds of conflict. So you'll see a lot of relatively, I guess you could say, peacemaking. People aren't quick to get angry at another person. So you'll see many situations in which people aren't going to easily express the fact that they're offended. Things don't escalate to dramatic levels that you would see in the workplace or road raging or anything like that. You wouldn't see those types of escalations going on, but obviously there would be some tension between individuals in this organization. So now that we're done with 5 reasons why you should join, let's move on to 5 reasons why you should leave, which is preferably what I would like to talk about. So the first one on the list is critical thinking. Obviously, the governing body expects total obedience. They don't want anyone to think about the things they've written. They don't want anyone to see the history of the organization. You can't go back any further than 19, I believe 1970 for the Watchtower, and no, 1970 for the Awake and 1950 for the Watchtower. I believe it's like that. But basically, you don't have the opportunity to think about why certain things are, why certain rules are being enacted. Or I shouldn't say you don't have the opportunity to think. You don't have the opportunity to express the doubts that you have, because it's just not acceptable. At a certain point of you being in the Jehovah's Witness organization, you just have to stop asking questions, because once you've gotten baptized and dedicated your entire being to this God, Jehovah, you're expected to be compliant. You're not supposed to be asking questions, because asking questions shows a spiritual weakness. So complacency is expected. You're not supposed to question the governing body members, whether they're truly right or wrong. It doesn't matter, because they are God's appointed people to guide the organization through Armageddon. So yeah, you're not allowed to ask any questions, even though, you know, they're supposed to be human beings, and human beings make mistakes, so they're supposed to be making mistakes too, but I guess you can't point out their mistakes. And just to add to that, the governing body have never, ever apologized for any mistakes they've made. I think the closest thing they've ever done to an apology was right after 1975 by Raymond Franz, but that wasn't an actual apology. It was more like a written statement. I guess the governing body are just too proud to admit any of their mistakes. Let's move on to number 2, which is freedom. So not only the freedom to do what you want, but also the freedom of time and the freedom of other people watching your every step, you know? I think that's, for me, the biggest factor for me. Of course, I want the freedom of my time. I mean, going to meetings, going out in service, and having to watch the conventions and all this stuff, and go to the meeting for the circuit overseer and all that stuff. I'd rather not have to go through wasting my time and energy going through the motions of that. But honestly, the best kind of freedom is not having people text you just because you missed a meeting, or ask you if you're doing spiritually well or anything like that. That's just, to me, is just very irritating. It's like, why? I understand why, like, the elders are doing it. Obviously, they're trying to keep everyone within the congregation spiritually awake. But honestly, it does get annoying that you have to consider the fact that if you miss too many meetings, or if you're not regularly visible, then people are gonna start texting you or calling you and asking you if you're okay and things like that. So you feel like you're getting policed. Very, very, very annoying. Let's move on to number 3 of the reasons why you should leave this organization, and that is arrogance. So Jehovah's Witnesses act like they are very humble and want to put on this pretense that they have this sense of superiority, or sense of superiority. But the truth is, they're not very humble. One example I can give you is, I remember, I'm sure this has happened multiple times, but I just remember driving home from service, or maybe we weren't driving home. I don't remember the reason or where we were headed, but I just remember it was service. So we were going out in the ministry or going to lunch or something. We were heading in a certain direction and we were driving by a church. So the church, I don't know what you call it. I guess the church meeting ended. So people were leaving the facility, and you can see the people that were leaving the facility just wearing their ordinary clothes. So they weren't dressed in suits and dresses like we were. They were just wearing their regular attire. So everyone was making comments in the car group about how those in the church wear ordinary clothes to congregate, to worship, and yet we were wearing suits and dresses to look our best for the worshiping that we're doing. So essentially everyone was looking down on those who were going to that church because we were better people, because we dressed better for our meetings. Even when I was in the car group and indoctrinated, I kind of just went along with what everyone said, but in the back of my mind, I didn't really think that was appropriate because it just gives off this sense of superiority, which I just don't like. I don't like trying to put myself above other people because we're all just human, you know? And so I never really liked that. And then there's also essentially just anyone who isn't a Jehovah's Witness has some sort of label on them. If you aren't a witness, you're labeled as someone living in the world, someone who's oblivious to reality, someone who just doesn't understand how the world came about and how the world is going to go from the future, how future events are going to happen and when, and just the lack of knowing the Jehovah's Witness doctrine makes you sort of this person who, I don't know, just a lesser being because you don't understand the doctrine or know the doctrine. Essentially, we have this saying in the organization. It's off of a scripture. I can't remember which scripture, but it talks about people in the world having this veil. So we would call people who don't accept the scriptures as someone who has a veil that just won't allow them to be reasoned with the scriptures. So adding a label like that, and to top it off, we have speakers who call atheists mentally diseased. So there's all kinds of labels that Jehovah's Witnesses add, which comes across very arrogant. Moving on to number 4, this one I call inadequacy complex. So basically, we have the organization trying to get you to go out in service regularly, make all the meetings, try to pioneer if you have time, do your daily Bible reading, do personal study, do the family worship, and all these things. Don't sin. It's just a lot of pressure you're adding on to people who have natural tendencies. So you're going down this rabbit hole of thinking you're not good enough for God because you can't live up to all the expectations that are placed upon you. This causes depression, obviously. Also makes you thought police a lot of things, because apparently if you think about anything sexual in your mind, you're committing adultery or fornication. So you're not even supposed to be thinking about those type of things, which is very unhealthy. You can't sometimes control the things that you think about, and the fact that you have to police your thoughts will make you feel even more inadequate, because you can't control your thoughts. Your thoughts are just your thoughts. So you're constantly battling against what you feel you should do and what you're actually doing. This is the reason why there's so many in this organization who are depressed, because they just feel like they can't do enough. And you see that in a lot of the videos, especially for the older ones. They're always talking about how they can't do what they used to. Once you get to a certain age or certain kind of events happen where you have other responsibilities which take away from the amount of time that you've previously had in order to worship, then you obviously feel that you obviously don't consider the fact that your life circumstances are different. You only think about the fact that you're not doing what you used to do, because you're always told to give it 110%. Now the things you're doing are 70-60% of what you've done before. So the feeling of inadequacy just escalates. Let's move on to our final point, number 5, on why you should leave a Jehovah's Witness organization. And this one is also networking. I say this because you lose many opportunities as a Jehovah's Witness. You gain a lot of opportunities, no doubt, but you also can't associate with people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses, which cause a double-edged sword. You can't make friends with people at work, so you miss out on opportunities of branching out, especially career-wise. So a lot of people within the industry that you work at may have offers that can bring you to a better place, or perhaps a better paying job, or a more flexible job, or even a completely different career. But you're not going to be able to find those opportunities, because as a Jehovah's Witness, you're trying to stay away from those of the world, quote unquote, which make you lose certain kinds of opportunities that you may or may not gain in the organization. You just never know. So although you're gaining networking from joining this organization, you're also losing a lot of networking, because like I said, you can't be making friends outside of the organization. So sporting events, volunteering, work, a party, none of that. You're missing out on all those opportunities. And that is the end of my list. I hope you guys enjoyed it or found it interesting, or perhaps it made you think a little bit about these topics, or how one could come into the organization from the first 5 lists that I gave you. So if you made it this far, I want to thank you so much for watching or listening to the video. And if you liked it, feel free to leave a thumbs up or perhaps a thumbs down if that's your cup of tea. And thank you so much, guys. I will catch you guys next time.